What did the first human to discover fire actually feel? You are not afraid of the dark because of monsters. You are afraid of the dark because for 2 million years, your ancestors had no answer to it, no defense, no way out, just blindness and the sound of something moving closer. Then, somewhere in the grasslands of East Africa, around 1.7 million years ago, something changed. Not a tool, not a weapon, a flicker. We don't know his name. We don't know if it was a man, a woman, a child crouched near a tree struck by lightning. But somewhere, someone looked at fire for the first time and did not run. That single decision is the most underrated moment in human history. Before that moment, fire was something that happened to you. Lightning split a tree, the forest burned, and you fled, same as every other animal on the savannah. Fire did not negotiate. It did not stop for you. For millions of years, every instinct a primate possessed screamed one instruction at the sight of flame: get away. So picture the moment differently. Picture a creature whose entire nervous system is built to flee fire, standing close enough to feel the heat on its face and not running.
Imagine being the one responsible for that. Imagine the first night your group did not have to take turns staring into total darkness, listening for the leopard that hunts by sound when it cannot hunt by sight. Imagine warmth that did not come from another body pressed against you. Imagine light that moved when you moved, that pushed the edge of the dark back 10 feet, 20 feet, far enough that for the first time in the history of your species, you could see the thing that was trying to kill you before it reached you. That is not comfort. That is not coziness around a campfire. That is the single greatest leap in personal safety a human being had ever experienced. And it happened in one night around one fire. And nobody alive at that moment had a word for what they were feeling because the feeling didn't exist yet. We can guess at it now. Relief so total it bordered on disbelief. The kind of relief that makes your hands shake after the danger is already past. But the fear didn't disappear. It transferred. Fire had to be guarded every single hour, every single night for the rest of that group's life. It could not be left alone. A fire that goes out is not an inconvenience when you have no way to make another one. It is a sentence. The skill to create fire from nothing, friction, sparks, flint, came.
Researchers studying ember transport across early human migration routes have found something remarkable. Evidence suggests some groups carried fire with them for generations. Not relit. Carried. The same lineage of flame, fed and guarded and passed down, traveling inside smoldering bundles of bark and moss across distances that would take modern humans days to walk. Some anthropologists believe certain fires may have been kept alive, uninterrupted, for hundreds of years before true fire-starting technology made the practice unnecessary. Sit with that. A flame watched every single night by hundreds of different humans. Now here's where this gets even bigger than safety. Even bigger than warmth. Fire changed what your ancestors could eat, and eating changed what your ancestors could think. Before cooking, your ancestors were eating raw meat, raw roots, raw everything, and raw food is brutally inefficient. Your gut has to work overtime to break it down, and even then, you're only extracting a fraction of the available calories. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, spend nearly half of every single day just chewing. Hours and hours every day just to get enough calories to survive. That's not a lifestyle. That's a full-time job with no days off. Cooking changed the math entirely. Primatologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard has spent decades building what's now called the cooking hypothesis. The idea that fire didn't just make food taste better, it fundamentally rewired human evolution. Cooked food is dramatically easier to digest. The proteins denature, the starches break down, and your body suddenly has to spend far less energy extracting the same number of calories, sometimes getting access to nearly twice the usable energy from the exact same piece of meat. And where do you think that extra energy went? The human brain is staggeringly expensive to run. It makes up roughly 2% of your body weight, but burns through about 20% of your daily calories, just sitting there, thinking. No other primate brain demands anywhere close to that. For your ancestors' brains to grow to the size they eventually reached, something had to free up an enormous amount of metabolic energy. Cooking is one of the leading explanations for where that energy came from.
But cooking wasn't the only thing fire rewired. It rewired your days. Before fire, when the sun went down, that was it. Activity stopped. There was nothing to do in the pitch dark except sit in fear and wait for sunrise. Every single day of your ancestors' lives was capped by darkness, hard, with nothing on the other side of it but stillness and dread.
Fire broke that ceiling. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Juhuansi people of the Kalahari, comparing what they talked about during the day versus what they talked about at night around the fire. The difference was staggering. Daytime conversation was almost entirely practical. Complaints, gossip, logistics, who did what, who owes who. But nighttime, fire-lit conversation transformed into something else entirely. Stories, myths, histories of people long dead, tales about animals, about ancestors, about how the world came to be. Fire didn't just give your ancestors extra hours in the day, it gave them the first hours in human history that weren't dedicated purely to survival. For the first time ever, there was time left over. Time after the hunting was done, after the food was cooked, after the immediate dangers were handled. Extra hours every single night with nothing forcing your attention onto a threat. And in that leftover time, sitting in a circle lit from below by orange light, looking at each other's faces instead of scanning the tree line for danger,
And there's one more piece, maybe the most important piece that almost nobody talks about. Fire forced your ancestors to trust each other in a way nothing before it ever had. Think about what it means to fall asleep next to a fire, surrounded by other humans, with your eyes closed and your guard completely down. For nearly the entirety of primate evolution, sleeping in a group meant sleeping with at least part of your brain still half alert, because the individuals around you were potential threats too, not just outside dangers. But fire created something different. It created a single shared resource that everyone depended on equally. The fire didn't care who you were, it needed care from anyone willing to give it. And that need, that shared responsibility, anthropologists believe became one of the earliest forms of structured human cooperation. You couldn't keep a fire alive alone, not really, not for years at a time. You needed people you could trust to take their turn, people who would actually do it, even when nobody was watching them do it. Firekeeping may have been one of the first tests of reliability our species ever ran on each other.